What's going on, guys? This is Chevy and Chris here with Tasty Loot Gaming. We're doing a tasty bit. As I'm sure a lot of you know from hanging out on the channel and listening to us talk about what we play all the time. Me and Chris often are playing Final Fantasy 14, and recently we've been able to start doing a lot of the raiding in game, and thought it might be fun to kind of share that with you guys, and maybe have a discussion about the raid itself, kind of how it works. I want to kind of keep this away from being a guide, have an overall discussion on it and our thoughts. And then after we're done with the video and having our discussion, I'm going to go ahead and put the entire fight in with no interruptions with our voices or rewinding or anything like that, if you want to watch it after we're done having our conversation. Well, first off, thanks for joining me, Chris, and providing the footage.
Absolutely. I ain't doing nothing.
So yeah, as I kind of mentioned, we're not long-time Savage Raiders, and if you don't know what that means, that is essentially the raid scene aspect of Final Fantasy 14. That's some of the harder fights in the game. There's only one difficulty above it, so which is ultimate.
Right.
So
right.
in most cases, you're doing Savage to get the best gear in the game. So
Yeah, ultimate fights tend to be more of like, I'm looking for the extra challenge and glory of having a fancy looking weapon, I think is usually what you get from it.
yeah, and title. Yeah, it's literally there for people who want that challenge. I think like 1% of players attempt ultimate, so
They're
pretty
very
uncommon.
demanding.
Yes. But we're not talking about ultimate. We're talking about Savage raiding. So just kind of explain how raiding is in Final Fantasy 14. Every expansion there is 3 sets of 4 fights, and those release in different phases. So like when the expansion comes out, you get the first 4 fights. I believe it's the 0.2 patch, you get the next 4, and then the 0.4 patch, you get the last 4. Does that sound right?
About right.
I have
Sounds
that
about right.
And then in order to access them, you have to do the normal difficulty, which you could also kind of refer to as like the story difficulty, to unlock the Savage. And then you could do the Savage, which you have to do in order and can only get loot once a week, which resets I believe on Tuesdays. So
Right. Tuesday mornings.
Yeah, so last year we made it halfway through it. We started very late though. We got pushed into raiding by a free company member. You'll see his name on the screen. It'll be Katari. I believe he's at the bottom of the list there. And he kind of runs the raid for us.
He's an amazing job, to be honest. The fact that he's top DPS almost every time and making callouts, I'm just in awe of it every time.
100%. It's very appreciated. I have a little bit of experience back in my WoW days, and I had to play a simpler to play job to be able to do both. So I definitely understand the demand that takes. So, and understanding of the fight. But at least in the terms of Final Fantasy 14, the fights are they're scripted. And what that means is, for example, in this fight, which we're going to be showing you here, it is a 10-minute fight, and events happen at certain time markers. Sometimes it is a option A or option B, and then later in the fight, you get the one you didn't get the first time. So it's kind of interesting. It keeps you on your toes a little bit in those regards too, because you have to be able to adapt in that moment, but it also still gives you that time to kind of like figure out the puzzle almost.
Right.
And I think the difficulty more so lies in, usually the DPS check is what your end piece is. So you're trying to learn the mechanics, survive through them, while also performing your job at a level that will allow you to get the boss's hit points down to 0 before the end of the timer, in this case 10 minutes, in which case your raid bosses do what's called min rage, which is a move you will not survive.
Yeah, there's
Game
nothing
over.
that can block it. And most of these fights, when you're going through them, the first couple times is learning the mechanics order and how they're going to happen. And then after that, it's optimization of your rotation.
100%. So I always like to equate it to, and I kind of said it already, it's like puzzle solving, and fine-tuning your movements and squeezing in as much time as you can to do damage while also surviving. So Chris plays ranged damage dealer, I play healer, so we have different perspectives in these fights. So I feel like I've prattled on a long time about what this is, so I kind of want to get into the fight itself, unless you have anything you would like to bring up that I may have missed.
Nope, you're doing great.
Okay, so we're kind of winging this, so
a little bit.
Just kind of bear with us a little, yeah. We're going to go ahead and do this in phases, kind of slightly talk about the fight, because I don't want it to be a guide. And then we can say what we like, what we don't like, and maybe compare it to last year, since we did have an opportunity to start rating last year. So yeah, if I can have you go ahead and rewind the video to the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And kind of talk about it real quick. Thank you. So the beginning of the fight, and it's all in phases. Essentially, what you're going to see here is, if I'm not mistaken, that move right there, ground razor particle beam, is just damage that everyone's going to take.
Right.
Very flashy, can be really confusing to look at, but at the end of the day, everyone's just going to get hit. Art of Darkness can be two different things. It can either be damage going 4 directions or 8 directions. If it's going 8 directions, everyone needs to get away from each other. If it's 4, you need a buddy to stand with to share the damage. And then whichever one is first, the other one will be second.
Correct.
Devouring Dark is what we refer to as a tank buster. It is high damage that generally only a tank is going to survive. So, and in some fights, there will be multiple hits and the tanks have to share it.
Right.
Now at this point, go ahead.
This raid tier has been really heal heavy. I've noticed there's been a lot of AoE damage that knocks people down to close to 90% damage of their health. Been really terrifying.
I 100% agree with that. At least compared to last year, this is all we can really talk about because we haven't been raiding that long. So what ended up happening here is we went to a phase called Obscure Woods, which the arena changed and her moveset changes. If you see on the screen all the little circles on the ground, those are what we call bramble patches, and we put them specifically in this order so that you have essentially a partner you're always standing with, which does come into play for multiple reasons. One of those is going to be that you're going to first off be connected to that one, but it's also going to attach you to someone who's on the other side, and you have to run through and break both tethers, otherwise you will get sucked into the bramble patch and take damage, or you will be connected to someone and you both just take a chunk of damage. So it's a very movement precise mechanic. It's definitely easier to see it or like do it in action than kind of explain it. That is definitely a point where I feel like got stuck for a little while. But once you get it, it kind of becomes very robotic at that point.
That's the way that a lot of these fights go. Once you understand how the mechanic works and how to adjust around it, it becomes more automated in play, and you focus again more on your rotations and how you can optimize your DPS for the fight.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. And then if you just notice as well, the boss tethers 2 yellow lines to one side of the arena and pulls herself to that side. Generally, you're going to split into 2 groups. You're going to get on the edge, minus the tanks will stand away from you. And and there is 2 versions of that. Unfortunately, as a healer, I have a hard time talking on this one because I don't have to move on that mechanic. I just know that there is a tank-focused attack, a point-blank attack, and a attack that hits the healer that the 2 partners need to stack with you to help take that damage.
There's 2 cleaves that target the tank that if hits anybody else will kill them. There is a close range AoE that does massive damage, so melee is the suffering ones for that one. And then there's one that targets the healers that you have to stack to spread the damage.
Okay, yeah. I would say that one's really difficult for me because I literally just stand in one spot the whole mechanic, so it's really smooth brain part of the fight for me.
This part of the fight has a really unique mechanic. As you can see with these tiles, they're laid out in kind of a cross pattern. And you saw there that the tile around me went purple. The mechanic is that if you stand on it for too long, the tile will get the purple border on it and then disappear and fall through. There's a dual mechanic with it as well, is that if you have 2 people stand on the same one, the tile instantly falls through. So it becomes like this shifting back and forth of I need space, you need space, on top of moving from mechanics the bosses do at the same time. It's really, sounds really, really hectic, but once you have the layout like we have and the calls that Katara gives us, it's just, again, smooth-brained mechanics at that point.
Yeah, that one's a little hard too because it definitely is designed to induce like stress. It wants you to feel like you're in a rush. It's actually very forgiving with the amount of time you have to get off that tile. That doesn't mean you should sit there and just wait all day, but you don't have to move immediately, which is the mistake that I feel most people are making at first, and they double step on a tile and both people die.
Yep, that's absolutely the mechanics design.
Yeah, so and in that fight there'll be moments where you still have to stack with your partner, but you can't share tiles, so you have to both stand on the edge of your tiles to soak that damage together. Or the spread one is really easy. You just split apart into 8 again by standing in your cardinal and intercardinal directions. So then it goes into this phase, which is the same as the first phase with a couple other additions. One of them is right in the beginning. 2 clones show up. They all are going to do a cleave, and only an 1/8 of the arena becomes safe. You just have to look at all 3 targets, see where they're going to cleave, dictate the safe spot, and then
back into
the rest of it's pretty much the same, except for I think there is a soak mechanic, which means to intentionally take damage. After this, I think we'll see it here. Yeah, right there. All those little light up platforms show up, and you run through, but instead of just standing there, you have a designated spot that all 8 of you have to stand. It does almost no damage, but if one person's missing, everyone dies.
Instant life. Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a rinse and repeat of mechanics we've already kind of gone through. And then after this, it goes back to the tile phase, which is just more of the same. I think the only thing we forgot to mention was in the tile phase, there's some cloud ads. They have to die because they buff the boss, and right around the time they are halfway through to the boss, or they are hopefully dying by then, you also shoot lasers out of your eyes, so you have to face away from each other. Otherwise, you will nearly kill the people that you hit.
Yeah. It's a big hit, and I think that's the design philosophy in a lot of these raids, is that because they are set patterns at set time intervals, they are heavily focused on making sure you do the exact mechanics. Otherwise, they just wipe you. Because it's just easy to predict what's happening once you know the time frame for everything.
For sure. And then right there, it was kind of hard to see, but if you saw a bunch of white feathers just kind of show up all over the arena, there's an ability in the game called Limit Break. I'm sure you're familiar with it. If you're familiar with Final Fantasies, it is a shared ultimate move that can be used for either damage mitigation or a save everybody type thing. In that case, we needed everyone alive for mechanic, so I ended up using it to make sure everyone was alive and at full health. So,
yeah, at this part, you're going to see here that cloud popping right in front of me, the hypercharged cloud. These are relegated to the range DPS in our group, and the healers get the tiles for the clouds, and they need to die as soon as possible without, like you see, they're kind of sped towards the cloud of darkness. And like Chevy said, it's going to give her a buff that would definitely just decimate our group, because we're on the edge of, I think, health point wise, that's safe for this fight.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of the mechanics go off here too that we forgot as well. It's right there, just gonna do a cleave on one side of the room, so everyone has to get individual tiles on the opposite side while not doubling up on each other, which is a patience game, really. And then after the clouds is also a donut attack, which essentially means a ring with a safe spot in the middle. She does it on the outside, so you need to get close to her for it. I feel like we spent a lot of time explaining the fight. Hopefully that was clear for you. If not, there are people out there who do this for a living, explaining these fights. I would definitely suggest going and checking them out. Anything else you want to talk about in that regard before we get into thoughts of the fight and then comparison?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, so what I want to do now is just have an overall thoughts on the fight. Is there any mechanics that you found particularly challenging? Is there anything you like about it? Is there anything you don't like about it? Do you want them to just never do certain things again, or was your overall experience good?
There are a lot of mechanics here and there that are a little difficult for me, in particular when we have to split the brambles between like heals and tanks and DPS all in one section. Or no, the north facing one where we have to be at her face and adjust according to what they call boss relative, which is where the boss is facing. We adjust our positioning, where you and I have to stack to the side.
Yeah.
I find that one difficult just to keep track of which way boss relative is going to be for us. And it's just a matter of knowing north and south in the middle of a fight, which is fine. It's a fine mechanic, but it's just a little difficult to understand boss relative early on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is something that can be a little difficult at first, because I feel like for most people it's easier to understand what we would call true north, which is in the mini map, whatever direction is north, you base all your moves by those directions. As let's say if we're doing boss relative, the boss is facing east. East has now become north. North has become west. West is south and south is east. So, and that can throw people off for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a mechanic I think I have a lot of problems with. Just because, figuring out the relative positions and where I need to be. But that being said, I really like this fight a lot. I like the design that they used for Cloud of Darkness. It's weird that we have two raids to me of Cloud of Darkness. I get it that this is supposed to be the memory. Or most of the Eden raids are supposed to be like memories, but we don't really tell them about Cloud of Darkness for them to get this idea of what it's supposed to look like. And I believe this design is based off the Dissidia fighting games, Cloud of Darkness.
It is, yeah.
Which I really like that design a lot. I really enjoy it. But we have an old raid in Crystal Tower where Cloud of Darkness is the final boss, but it's Cloud of Darkness in her, I guess, true form. I guess you could call it.
She's literally a cloud.
Yeah.
With a face. So.
Yeah. But I like the design that they used here. It's just kind of weird to me that we have another pretty dead-on raid boss and just a different raid tier.
Yeah, I mean, this whole raid tier has been kind of like that anyways, though, with repeats of bosses just reimagined, which I think has been fun. I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to do story spoilers here.
Right.
But yeah, there's definitely a reason for it that definitely fits. You got melted there.
I did get melted. I stood too close to someone's beams.
I think it was me, because I think we stand next to each other.
We do, but I think I had positioned just slightly too close to the boss itself at that point.
Oh, I gotcha.
I ate a couple.
Oh, it's all right. Spoiler alert for when we do the next one of these. I died twice in that video. So.
It happens to us all.
Oh yeah. No, you're actually, you guys are only seeing the success run. There was at least 30 failures before this.
Numerous failures.
Yeah, so it's a process, and so far right now we're getting about one fight every 2 weeks with a very limited schedule to actually do these. So, but that's adult life. So.
I also like this
Anything
phase
else?
too.
Oh,
I like
yeah.
this a lot. I think it's really unique with the tile layout and how you have to, it's forcing you to move properly. I there's a lot of mechanics. Obviously, they're gonna require you to move, but like this one feels unique, and I think they do a really good job with making each raid feel like they have unique mechanics to them while utilizing similar design philosophies.
For sure. I think we're just gonna kind of jump in with you, so we don't have to do an extra long part here.
Yeah.
Um, the the fight itself, I also enjoyed it. I think it has a lot of different phases and a lot of different things going on, so that you always feel busy during this fight. And it can be a little overwhelming at first, but I feel like once you get it down, it's hard to be bored because there's no point where you're like really idle for very long, you know. I also really enjoy fights that promote a lot of personal responsibility, because this is one of those fights that you screw up, you're kind of dooming everybody. There's a couple windows where like it's okay, but like in this phase, for example, if you die and get resurrected, you have to be able to get back to your platform without double stepping on people.
Right.
So it's a huge pain in the ass. Or like, you know, when there's the 8 soaks and you need all 8 people or else it's a failure, you know what I mean? So like I enjoy that kind of stuff, because especially as like at the first fight, because what I think this is doing is a good like barrier to entry to the rest of the tier, because this one's accessible to everybody, right? You have to beat this though to do 10, so you have to get through this kind of fight, which if it's promoting being responsible for your own actions, I think that only promotes better rating in following tiers.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
following fights.
Absolutely. You can definitely feel overall in the free company that we raid with the growth that has been happening with you know, character control and understanding mechanics and responsibilities for that. You can just see people are really starting to click with it. It's really neat to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, we're not doing this like any form of like, I guess, competitive sense other than just wanting to beat it, but we're mostly just doing this because, you know, we want to do it together as a group. Otherwise we'd all be in Party Finder, like playing with random people constantly, just getting gear. So but yeah, I mean, design wise, like I said, it's neat. I like also there's 3 phases, so like the visual appearance changes, the mechanics vary from stage to stage. The brambles was such a, like, if you look at the screen right now, it's a mess, right? Like but then once you understand what you have to do as an individual, the mess kind of disappears and you just kind of like just do what you need to do, and you just have to hope that the other 7 do the same. So
and you'll see that as well in the next raid tier.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think personal responsibility is kind of an important thing. I think it makes better players. So otherwise you're being carried, and you know, as gear scores go up and you get stronger, that's easier to do, but and stuff like,
sure, it gives you a little more leeway to kind of fudge around with it a little.
For sure. I mean, even in this, like, we had one, I think it was 1 death, and then the next fight, which I don't want to talk too much about, but we had at least 2 from me. I don't know if there was other deaths, but it's still pretty forgiving. But you need people up to do the damage, otherwise you'll fail at the end too. So
yeah.
Other than that, I agree with you on the design. I think it was neat of them to use the Dissidia model. 2 deaths. Sorry, Toki died there as well.
Oh, there's a bunch.
And a bunch, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is where I limit break.
Yep.
Make sure everyone's standing up. I also like just the feeling of progressing through it, I guess. But I feel like I'm just repeating myself, so maybe I should move on to the next part of this, which is we did the first fight last year, which was, I'm not going to really name it, but I guess I kind of have to. So Ramu was the first fight last year. How do you compare this fight to that, and also as a first fight of the tier, which one do you think is a better beginning of a raid tier?
That's pretty tough because I think this teaches players better mechanical responsibility overall, but I think it's harder for beginners to do. I think Ramuh is an easier fight for beginners to learn.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm torn because I think I think Furious 14 screws people up a lot in Ramuh. So, though I guess Tiles, this phase right here also screws up people a lot. So I think it's a bit of a toss-up. I do think this fight is a little more fun for me. I do like the Ramuh fight though.
Yeah, I definitely had more fun doing this fight overall. I like this one a lot better. But I think the fight itself is just more difficult. Just because I think it's more punishing damage-wise. Like if you take a hit in the wrong spot, or if you mess up a little bit, you're done. You're out.
Right.
Whereas with Ramuh, I think you have a little more leeway overall outside the Furious 14, which is instant. But even then, Furious 14 can, if the person who misses the mechanic, the raid can recover from it if it's done in a certain way. This, I think it's harder to recover from overall.
Yeah, though, spoiler alert, easier to recover on this than the next fight. I don't think we really have much else to talk about on this one. So I guess I will, unless you got something to say, wrap this up.
No. You're good.
So, first off, thanks everyone for watching. If you made it this far, really appreciate it. If you have any feedback you'd like to give, maybe we missed something, maybe you wanted us to talk about something, you have questions about something we missed, let me know in the comments below so I can, when we do the next one, do it a little better. And I'm going to go ahead and after we're done doing our spiel and we're done talking here, we're going to do the fight without us talking over it. Afterwards, if you want to watch the whole fight from start to beginning, or start to end, uninterrupted, that'll be there. If not, thanks for hanging out and listening to us. I guess as a reminder as well, make sure to like and subscribe if you would like to see more content from Tasteless Gaming, and we have lots of other things available in the description box below: audio forms, streaming platforms, and if you really want to, we have a Patreon where you can support the channel. All of that money goes back into the channel so that we can continue bringing you guys content. My name is Chevy.
I'm Chris.
And thanks for hanging out, guys, and we will see you in the next video.
Bye.